All right, and we're live.
Okay. Thank you guys for joining the meeting. I'm going to start with the Open Public Meeting Act notice. This meeting is being held in accordance with the Sunshine Law annual notice having been published on or about July 1st, 2023 in 2 local newspapers with a copy on file with the board secretary and a copy to be posted on the TCCS website. This meeting is being called to order at 7:10. Okay, so the first thing is the approval of minutes. I believe we could only approve the 9/11 minutes. I don't think the 10/9s came out. So we're gonna table the 10/9 and this vote could just be approval for the 9/11.
Got it.
Okay, so all in favor? Aye. Oh, sorry. Motion? Gilchrist moves, second. Mitchell seconds. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, 9/11/2023 minutes approved.
Okay. All right, so before we kick off some of our more formal presentations and the other agenda items, I had asked Ms. Torres to invite the Student Council Executive Board to join us tonight to give a little bit of a student perspective about how the years has been going so far for the first month and a half or so. Actually, almost, I guess, 2 months at this point. We're in November, so. So I'll pass it over to Ms. Torres and she can introduce them to you guys.
Well, I wanted them to come and to introduce themselves. I know last year we brought the student council here to introduce themselves and say their role. So if you guys can stand up and we did have our student council president who was here for basketball tryouts who got injured. So she was coming back and so she's not here.
She took a poke to the eye.
Yeah. But then we could start with Savannah.
Savannah, Vice President. I'm Lisa. I'm the Green Room Secretary.
My name is Isabella Cruz, and I'm in 7th grade, and I'm very excited to be treasurer for this school.
Congratulations.
Thank you for being our voice for our students. I know they are very helpful. Any teachers, any announcements, TCSEO, like we're all working together with the student council more this year. So we appreciate you guys. I know eventually you'll be helping us with the student survey. So they've really been busy already the last couple months and we look forward to keeping working with you guys. You guys have anything else you want to say?
How's it going? You like your jobs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do great. I like this separate school.
You like what?
I like this separate school.
Good.
This is the school where I wish that we could friend. So I would
Great.
Thank you.
I want to still see something where it's like you select the schools and then it's this something look like against school and that's like myself school because it says over there against school. Because sometimes I can't do like after school or when there's other exercise. So stuff like that.
Great.
Thank you guys.
Thank
And
you.
congratulations. Yay, students.
Okay, so speaking of students, we're going to move along here to our annual NJSLA results presentation. By law, we're mandated to actually present these results publicly at a board meeting within, I believe it's 30 days of when they're actually released. So we're within the deadline that we've got there. What I have for this year is a little bit more involved. Now that we are working with Linkit, we have actually been able to upload all of our test results to the service, actually going back 5 years. And I've got some interesting to look at without getting too deep into it. The initial presentation, and that was one of the 5 presentations that they had sent me. What we're going to do for tonight, we're just really going to focus a lot on comparative assessment results in terms of student achievement. So those who met or exceeded the expectations for the spring test. And what we'll do is the lengthy presentation with all the demographics, things like that. I'm actually sharing that out with with the chairs and the curriculum committee so that you guys can dig into that a little bit deeper. So that'll be available to the board in that way. Okay.
Mhm.
So as everybody knows, the NJSLA was taken in the spring. There was an assessment in ELA, there was an assessment in math, and there was an assessment in science for grades 5 and 8. For math and ELA, it's for grades 3 through 8. And we've been taking these tests for a very long time, aside from the 2-year break that we actually took due to the pandemic. So what Lincoln has done, and we'll get to this towards the end of the slide, they actually have assessment results going back to 2019 for ELA and for math to see where we are, because there have been questions about the pandemic has had on us as a school, when we talk about statewide trends with learning loss and things like that. And there's an opportunity to see where we're starting to improve again, where we still need to work. And that's all really in the reporting. So the first couple of slides, it really is just about very specific granular numbers when it comes to how much we improved, actually dropped in the highest levels and the lowest levels. So I'm not going to get into those specifics, but if you look at the graphics, this is just an overview of how we scored on each of the grade levels for ELA. So, you see a lot of meeting, across the board. That's just about the highest that we've seen, aside from grade 6 ELA, where the highest group of kids were approaching. When you compare it to how we did on the 22 assessment, it gives you a little bit more of an indication of how we're doing year to year. And I've got other slides that are related to that. But let's move on to math, where this is a similar sort of scenario. I will, and this has been shared, with our chairs. We do have quite a bit of work to do when it comes to math. The most concerning results definitely were in math compared to ELA. We actually did improve almost across the board in ELA, but in math, there's definitely some gaps that we need to fill in and to address. And it's not as apparent as it did last year. But this is the breakdown of math when it comes to the 5 grade, the tests that were taken and the 5 potential scores. All right. Any questions about the math breakdown here? All right. Now looking at science, there were only 2 assessments that were given, the grade 5 assessment and the grade 8 assessment. And it's also scored differently, where there's only a 4 score tier that's available. So what we do when we look at achievement, we look at those that are in the green. So that's either proficient or advanced. And I will say, in looking at the data, that in science, we actually improved across the board. So that's also a positive, year to year. And again, I'll get to the more specific comparisons next. So I'm going to actually gloss over, again, some of these more granular things where we look at the slight percentages that we actually improved for grades for levels 4 and 5 and 1 and 2. But it's all here. There's really a lot of information. There's breakdowns with the number of kids who were tested and how that potentially have had an impact on scores and things like that. And these are things that we're looking at in ways that we've never really looked at before, because we never had these kinds of analytics. But it's really interesting stuff when you look at it, comparing it to our in-house assessments and things like that. So I'm going to go past a lot of these charts. We're going to get to the next set of graphics that I had actually put together, which is looking at how we did at each of these tests year to year by grade. So these are all the different assessments that were taken, and anything that's green is good, right? So that means that from year to year, how we did as a school on that particular test improved. So you see a lot of green in ELA, not all that much in math, and that's something that we've been talking about and are going to continue to talk about. But there are some things that really stand out where, grade 8, we went up 32% in ELA, 24% in grade 5, and we did drop though in 6 and 7. The other thing we have to keep in mind when we're talking about percentage points is that due to our student enrollment, one student equates to about 3 or 4%. So, it's not, it makes a little bit more of a difference when you think about how many kids this actually represents. But overall, we want to see more green than red, and that's what really kind of stands out about the math. And Adam and I have actually spoken about this a bit, and he's going to reference some of this stuff in his own presentation about what we're doing to take care of that, or at least to address it. But in science, it is good to see that from year to year, we actually went up on both of those assessments. Now, the next slide actually shows how we did comparatively by cohort. So that means that this same group of students, when they were in third grade, half of them passed the test. When they were in fourth grade, 72% of them passed, and that's for ELA. So it's somewhat more consistent here for grades 5 and 6, where it actually went down, but not all that significantly. I can make it a little bit bigger. There we go. All right.
Now my head's in the-
Perfect. But what we do see with these cohort models as well is that we still had issues year to year in math, where the students who were in fourth grade, who were third graders last year, scored a 75 in third grade and a 58 in fourth grade. Same thing, they went from a 60 to a 43, 36 to 27, 34 to 21. These are things that we have to really look at a little bit more closely to figure out why. The other set of test results that they do send to us that I share with the chairs is actually a breakdown of individual skills and how they did year to year on individual skills, which is going to help us to figure out what we want to really focus on in the classroom, what we want to focus on in some of these other extracurricular programs that we're talking about with basic skills, ASAP, tutoring, things like that. The only area that we had significant gains by a single cohort is actually in math. That is in algebra, where when they were in 8th grade, and they either they didn't take the 8th grade math assessment the year prior. So the 7th grade students who took the 7th grade assessment, 29% of them passed. When they were in 8th grade, they actually had 55% of them who passed algebra. So that is a positive. All of this, though, does have to be looked at in context when looking at the entire state. So it's obviously important for us as a school and internally to figure out how we're doing and how we can improve, is to look at how we did compared to ourselves. But the other thing that we're really held against in the larger scope of things when we talk about our performance as a charter school and whatnot is how we fared against the state. And even more importantly, how we did against the local district, which is TNEC. We do not have the TNEC numbers yet because they haven't presented theirs yet, and it's probably going to be at this week's board meeting. So we'll be able to follow up at a later date with how we did compared to them. But what I do have is a comparison against the state. And looking at the state, the news is a little bit better. So the state results, or the state average, I should say, is the first column, and then how we did in 2023 is the second column. So almost across the board in ELA, we outperformed the state, except for 6th grade ELA. So that's important to note. And in some cases, like 8th grade ELA, it was significant, 31%. But it's promising that even our youngest kids who tested for grade 3, we outperformed the state by 22%. So the only concern from this list is actually 6th grade, and that's where we did 14% less in terms of achievement compared to the state. Now for math, there are in our lower grades we outperformed the state a little bit, nothing too significant, but we are still seeing those concerns in grades 6 through 8, where the state averages were actually higher than how we performed as a school, and that again, that's a concern. Inconsistent with the last slide, though, algebra is something that seemed to have, had been an outlier when it comes to how we did compared to the state. In science, we outperformed the state in both of them, which is consistent with how we did even, compared to ourselves in the last, over the course of the last 2 years. So that's important to note as well. So there is some more promising information here when compared to the state. But what really stands out is this certain group of reds here, where we're talking about middle school math for grades 6 through 8. We want to make sure we're seeing what really could be making that impact over the last year and a half or so. So the only other slides that I've actually included are the 5-year and 3-year comparisons that Linkit provided. So if we look at our NJSLA scores for ELA and for math, we actually have the ability now to look at how we did over the course of the past 5 years in terms of the number of kids who met or exceeded and passed the test. So if you look at the different color-coded bars, it goes all the way back to 2016. That's the first row in all of these. And you can see that achievement actually rose in 2016 to 2017, 2017 to 2018, almost across the board, and 2018, 2019. And obviously, just as we see with the state and everything else that we've heard, there has been a drop-off over the past two testing sessions. So, I mean, it's something that's not a huge surprise. It's something that everyone is talking about. But what is promising, at least in ELA here, is the fact that we do see almost across the board, except for it looks like 6th grade, an increase year to year. So there was a big drop after 2020, but you see in 2021, 22, and then 22, 23, we have increased the number of kids in most grade levels that have expressed that achievement and have passed the assessment. Now looking at math, it's a similar trend on the front end where you can see some of our achievement rates, back in 2016, 17, 18 were really, really high, looking at 83% of the kids passing, 86% of the kids passing, where that has dropped after the pandemic. And unfortunately, in several cases, it continues to drop as we've seen here when we're talking about math. So that, as a school, if you really want a picture of how we're doing as a school, if you look at that last column, you see that, we went from 16, 17, 17, 18, and then we started to drop and we continue to drop. So that's something that we really have to address when it comes to math, which is in looking at the data, what is most, I don't want to say urgent, but it's definitely what stands out the most when looking at the two different subjects. And then the final assessment comparison is the science. They only started giving the NJSLA in science in 2018, so there's only 3 years of comparison. But what we do have, and in terms of proficiency levels, is something similar to the other ones. But I'm happy to say again that we are definitely on the upswing this year, where we outperformed ourselves from last year. And in the case of 5th grade, we actually outperformed our 2018 numbers, which is good as well. So that's something else that, is we want to make sure whatever is working in science continues to work. And we continue to work on that and enhance it and really dig in with our STEM curriculum and the other things that we're doing that are addressed on that assessment. But those are the main slides when we're talking about student achievement. Again, the really granular data and the stuff that's broken down by demographics and things like that, I will share with the chairs. I'll share with the curriculum committee so that you guys can look at that a little bit more closely. But the basic gist of what we're looking at is that these aren't as good as we clearly would have wanted them to be. But now the next thing to do is to look at how we're dealing with this data, how we're going to use this data, and how we're going to use this tool to help us address those really specific topics and other needs that these kids have to make sure that we are back on the upswing, especially in math, and we continue to improve in ELA. And obviously, like I said, in science, we want to keep going with the positive achievement that we've seen there. So any questions about the assessment data? Yep.
In the comparative analysis for all states, is that inclusive of charter and public
Yes.
schools?
Yep. Yeah. That's everyone who takes the test in the state. So that's all charter schools are required to take the test as well. What I don't have is I don't have a comparison of just against charter schools. They don't provide us with that. That would be interesting to see. But we don't have that data specifically. It's something I could. I did upload our data to the Charter Association, who does their own sort of in-house assessment because they do. Their own sort of reporting on the sector because they want to show that charters are outperforming local districts and things like that. What's most important to us, in all honesty, is how we fared against the local district. So really, once we have that information, that'll be another piece of the puzzle to see how we fared against the district.
And private schools, I'll ask questions.
Private schools, if I don't believe they're not required to take the assessment the same way. So yeah. So it's just, well, charter schools are public schools, so it's really just the New Jersey public schools.
So when you get the data from them, they break down the standards.
Yes,
that
yes.
you need to, so what are we going to do with those standards that need to be retaught, or how do we look at how to reteach these standards to make sure they can become proficient?
Yeah, I mean, that's the question that we're relying on
That's the ultimate goal.
Of course, yeah. No, that's what, that's why now that we have this data, it's being shared with our chairs, being shared with Sonia and the curriculum committee to kind of come up with an action plan to see what specific targets have to be met, so that we're not, focusing on the wrong thing. Because obviously the things that are working, we want to continue to do that, but we want to also really, have a positive impact where we need it most. And, part of the responsibility of our chairs when we're talking about these in-house assessments and the presentations that we have, is to come up with ways that we can really, improve on where we are lacking. So that's definitely the main goal, is to look at those specific skill sets and those specific standards and things like that need to be retaught, whether it be in a remedial sort of way or in a more regular curricular way that applies to the entire class.
I'm curious to find out as well. Like I feel like these curriculum committee conversations have encompassed the 6, 7, 8, starting at 5. Like we've been looking at this dip in data, and we've been trying really hard to properly choose a curriculum and all these other things. But I feel like sometimes when we look at this data, we're not looking at the whole child and the impact that 6th, 7th, and 8th grade has on their emotional development, on their support systems. So I'm wondering too, if we, in our curriculum committee, if we invite in, our school social worker or, whatever comes about, so we can see if there's like a wraparound comprehensive model, because I'm assuming it's not just the impact of the actual academic as well. It's probably the social relationships, their self-confidence, their executive functioning skills. I'm sure there's a lot that is going into that. So we push the chair and we ask for curriculum updates and we ask for all these things, but I also feel like there's probably another piece we're missing. So I'm just going to ask if in curriculum, if that comes out, maybe we can have that support personnel also present, so that our action plan doesn't only encompass the actual academic and skill set, it also looks at the whole child. Because I think that might be where we're missing. That's one thing.
I mean, and I will say, in terms of district goals, about this year is utilizing data in a more productive way, and making sure that our in-house assessment data is calibrated to the state assessment data. So we're looking at the same things. So even having this tool, working with Linkit and things like that, this is information we never really had before at this level. So it is going to hopefully be useful, because that's really why we're paying for it. So it should definitely help us to really target that. But yeah, I think the SEL aspect of it is definitely something that's important too, because it is a certain grade level where we're seeing those particular gaps. So there's more to come on that, obviously, but we do have the tool to really make sure that we map out things in a way that is going to benefit the kids and benefit this year's assessments, I would hope.
A couple of things. The first is that I think the beginning of the data I couldn't really see because it wasn't blown up and I have terrible eyes. So if I could see a copy of that later,
Yep,
that'd be awesome.
Absolutely.
But what I was going to say is I'm most interested in comparing to ourselves, right? Because I feel like it was clear that 2017, 18, 19, things were going really well.
Yep.
So, have we stopped to take an introspection of what was going well and what has now fallen off? Because it can't just be like the students and the learning. It has to be something, whether it be behavior or teacher changes or whatever it is. Like, you guys kind of like taking that stock to say, what were we doing correctly? And then where did we fall off, right? And then the other thing I wanted to talk about was just, I agree with you that it's good that the ELA is going in a positive direction, but just looking at the data really briefly while you had it up, to me, 2% is a fluke. Somebody could have guessed, and that's why it's about 2%, right? So it's like standardized testing. You also have like those kids who do well on standardized tests, and you have those kids who, no matter what, won't do well on the standardized tests because they're just not good. So do we take that and compare it like ELA wise to what they're doing in their report cards and their grades, right? Because I know for a fact I have a kid who had straight A's in a different high school, and he would get a 2 on this test every single time he came out. So that'd be something I would say, like, we should compare that.
I love that.
Yeah, no, I mean, and again, that's sort of related to, I think, what we're talking about with the standards and how we're grading the kids in-house and how we're assessing them. My biggest piece of this and concern, to be totally honest, is to make sure that whatever these in-house assessments are reflect these same standards and the scores should look similar to how we're actually performing on the state assessment, because otherwise we're looking at things from a sort of distorted lens when it looks like, oh, things are good or things aren't that bad, and then we get the state assessment, which is, in all honesty, the one that really counts the most. And throw that on top of everything else, though, with the SEL and running a great school and wanting people to be here. The test isn't the end all be all, but it is important, right? And there does have to be a way to sort of calibrate things so that, right, we're looking for the same sort of data, whether it's in-house or state run, to make sure that we've got a really realistic view of how we're doing. So yeah, I definitely agree with all that too.
Do we have a specific target, a goal, a school in the district that overachieves every year that we can, attain to be, as opposed to just trying to compete against ourselves?
Yeah, well, again, in terms of renewals and our existence, we do have to show that we're outperforming the local district to a certain degree, which historically we have. You know what I mean? And I'm interested to see how the scores have come out. And I'm hopeful that how we fared against the state is going to be somewhat relevant in how we've done against the local district.
But we specifically choose
there are
schools? Like going against Teaneck Public Schools is not a
correct. Well, what there are, so there's peer groups. That's actually how they report out different things. That I was actually at the most recent Charter Association in-person meeting that was down in Trenton. It was I think not last month, it was the month before I was there. They had representatives from the DOE there. They talked about setting new guidelines for how we're compared. So again, just like you're saying, it's not really an apples to apples when you're talking about either the local district and where we're at, particularly as we expand and we even have a significant population of kids who aren't even from Teaneck. So looking at how other charter schools are performing is a big part of that, definitely, because we are a school of choice and all that. But they are talking about revamping these peer groups so that there is a really clear comparison against how you're doing against schools that you're supposed to be like. So they're not there yet, but it is something that they're talking about. So that we can't just arbitrarily say, let's pick this school and see how we did. But they're actually looking at granular data like this too, like when it comes to demographics, when it comes to the number of students, when it comes to the size of the classrooms, things like that, where the experience should be relatively similar, so that we have something to compare ourselves against. So there is talk of that. We just don't have that right now. But I'll be following up anyway with the Charter Association just to get an idea of how we're faring compared to charters as a whole, because to your earlier question, that is a very interesting question, because just the nature of how we teach and the experience that we provide. And again, it's not just sitting in a classroom and learning the facts. We try to provide a more holistic experience that's a little bit more hands-on and constructive. That I want to see how other schools who are supposedly doing the same thing did as well. So, but there's talk of that. And once I have more information, this conversation is not over. This isn't, particularly this year, this isn't just like a one presentation and done, moving on, because we do have to act on some of this data and really make decisions based on it too. But all of those suggestions are definitely taken into consideration. It's something that we're going to be continuing to work through, but particularly through the avenues that we have with the structures that we have with personnel and committees and things like that.
And maybe even students as well. Like maybe through the student council, we can ask the students what they feel that their impacts are, because we do that once a year survey, but that would be good information also to have them present to us kind of where they feel they need the support. Because I wonder what they're feeling in all this. We sit on the outside and assume, but they're at a level that they can articulate what they need. So that might be a good thing as well.
And the reality is, to answer your question about the comparison of the schools, we used to be that school, like that everybody would compare themselves to want to be us. Like that was Charter, so that's why I think it's interesting the comparison to the self-comparison, because that
5
was
years
the
ago.
reputation of the school.
But it's also when parents are looking for schools, right, especially on that kindergarten age, and they're trying to say, okay, am I put my kid in private school, or am I going to put my kid in, or try to get my kid into charter school? And they're juggling the costs and so forth. You need some kind of incentive to say, well, if you put your kid in charter school and he or she are able to get in, these are the results that you're going to see, as opposed to going to public schools in the same municipality. Or versus that $30,000, $60,000 a year school. Is it worth it? And in that way, you incentivize more enrollment, more.
Yeah, well, our annual reports and in all honesty, the financial reports that we have to give for funding, the state assessment results it's a major component of it to show that we're performing at a certain level. So it is, they talk about high stakes testing. This unfortunately is high stakes, particularly when you're a school that needs to be renewed every 5 years. So it's something that we do take seriously. It's something that we're looking at all those comparisons. But most importantly, how do we use this data to improve in the short term and right the ship, if you will. So we're more to talk about on that. But it's definitely a tool to help us sort of make those decisions. Okay. All right. And with that, we are going to bring up Mr. Adam to talk about our math scores from the beginning of the year.
I don't know if I want to follow.
That's a tough act to follow. Yeah.
So this isn't just the beginning of the year assessments, it's all the current assessment data as of today. So it goes by grade level. And then it's before upper school, there'll be a lower school action plan, and then we'll talk about the upper school action plan. So we have kindergarten. Not every grade level has the same amount of topics just because each curriculum is different. Some are faster than others. And if at any point you have a question, Mr. Gallo's going through that. First grade.
Okay.
Second grade. Third grade. Fourth grade. And some things that to help with lower school, we have interventions during boost. And proud to say that this year we knew there was a need for math, so we collected data during the summer, and interventions started the second week of school, which is leaps and bounds faster than we've ever started math interventions. Extra practice area needs improvement, and we're teaching some learning gaps. Our big focus this year, math, was again small group or one-on-one instruction during the class. Recommendations for the ASAP program, basic skills recommendations, possible referrals. Then we have upper school, which is 5th through 8th grade, and algebra and geometry. And we have 5th grade. Sixth grade. And now when we get to the 7th and 8th grade classes, they're split up a little differently. So for the 7th grade, it represents 20 students, 8th grade represents 14 students, 7th and 8th grade algebra represents 19 students, and geometry represents 12 students. So every year, leaving 6th grade, students take a placement test of where they'll be going, based not just the placement test, but their grades for the year, where they'll be going when they get to 7th and 8th grade.
I have a quick question. So,
Yeah.
so according to the data we're taking to find whether it's geometry or algebra, right?
Or, no, just, geometry would just be 8th graders.
Okay,
So when you take that placement test, it's more of an algebra placement test.
okay,
So if you don't perform well, you'll, to the algebra level, 7th grade now. 8th grade, if you didn't pass it in 7th grade, you'll take it again. For 7th grade, if you do not perform well, then you take 8th grade now. If you perform well after it, then you go to geometry in 8th grade.
okay. And if you don't, you just take it again?
Say that again?
You said that if they pass it, then they get into the 8th grade geometry. but if
Yeah,
they
they'll
don't,
get, if they don't pass, they'll be in 8th grade math.
8th grade math.
Or if they are ready for algebra, they'll be in algebra.
Okay. Now, so we have students graduating from this building never having a formal algebra class?
Yes. And every year is different. There might be a 7th grade just algebra class. There might just be an 8th grade algebra class. Really depends on the scores.
When they take the algebra class in high school, do they get exempt from taking it?
If they pass,
I
yeah.
think they have to test. They have to
You have
test
to
it.
pass the
Test
test
it,
for
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
To get the high
So
school
they
credit.
wouldn't just have like these credits and then automatically pass. They'll have to retest it,
Yeah.
test out.
And we provide them with the NJSLA results as well, yeah. Okay, next.
What grade do report cards start here?
They're like
You mean
third
like,
grade, like official
grade?
report cards, well, actually, no,
when you
fifth
say
through eighth
report
letter
cards, you
grades.
mean like A,
Grade reports.
B, C?
Yeah.
Well, I teach 3rd and 4th grade and we don't have, we still do on grade level, senior grade level, so upper school.
So the kids, before report grades, are parents aware of kids that are deficient in certain areas?
It's not like evaluation, it just looks different.
Do you mean like what the
Yeah.
structure of the
Yeah.
report card?
It's still a report card, but it's just like.
Mhm.
But you have to log into the parent portal
It's
and
not
they
an
show you stuff
ABC.
there, but it's not a formal report.
Here we have 7th grade now. And then as we get to 7th, 8th, they're not called topics anymore, they're chapters. 8th grade math.
So let me ask you a question. What standards are being taught that they're not passing? Like what standards are being taught here that they're going through? Like how does that correlate with what we just saw with them
They're
not
going
doing
through
well?
the New Jersey state standards for 8th grade.
So if we see that they're failing these standards, how are we be teaching to help?
Well, when we get to the action plan,
How many current 8th graders now, right, are actually taking geometry? How many do they do?
well, geometry is just 8th graders.
Yeah,
it's
but I
12.
mean, like, is everybody, like, so some 12 kids took
Yeah, it's 12 kids.
algebra one?
Is that this
year or
the 12
from
curriculum.
last year?
No, it's
It's
just,
this year.
So, because my
Those were
question
the they passed algebra last year.
is like, for like, say those kids who want to go to the specialized high schools, you have to take algebra 1 in 7th grade or you don't pass that test because you have to know it, right? So that's why I'm just curious, like, are parents aware that like if their kids don't have algebra 1 in 7th grade, that they shouldn't even bother to test those tests? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because it's the truth, they're not going to pass it.
Yeah.
But that's the thing that is, I don't know if they even
That's
offer
why they're not aware.
Yeah, and then they don't offer algebra, right? So what would that be the criteria? I was wondering about some of the other middle schools that I'm not sure if they even have like geometry and.
No, but that's one of the things that actually vets kids out of passing that test, because Charter always gave algebra as option in 7th, it's one thing. Just throwing it out.
Yeah, that's.
so we're,
So we do know a big part this year is improving the upper school math scores. So again, one thing we wanted to do was, reteach a lot of these gaps that we're seeing in the standards. And one way we wanted to go through that was, offering, I know Ms. Torres got a grant for a tutoring program. So we're hoping to find as many tutors as we can. We met today and focused on just those 7th and 8th grade groups, trying to set up who we can invite to receive this tutoring, and that's where we want to hit, where we're starting to see these gaps.
We were hoping to
we
start
got a-
next week, but we have to read
We got
some things.
a new curriculum this year for 7th and 8th grade math that we hope is going to improve it. There is some learning curves with that, but through staff and students. Recommendations, the ASAP program. But the big thing is just we want to teach these learning gaps, and throughout the day, it's with all the activities, it's really hard. So between tutoring or morning math classes, that's really where we want to hit that the most, and through Boost. So it's really just figuring out the staffing that can tutor these programs. Because we see the need, we just need to be able to help them.
I guess I would just also say that if you see the gaps in the 7th and 8th grade like you are, right? And then you look at the trends, we have to definitely find ways to support the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade because it clearly keeps dropping off 6th, 7th, and 8th. So somewhere along those lines, they're losing the foundational structure or something is missing that they are falling off and it's getting worse as they get older, you know? So maybe there's like something that's missing in the middle.
Pandemic though, that grade, those grades, that's my.
We've historically seen that data kind of dip for the past like 5 years at that grade level. So I think.
Well, I mean, you also have to keep in mind too, these kids in 5th, 6th, so they didn't even test in 3rd, 4th grade.
Right.
So this was their first time they ever tested.
But we
so
had
there's
the BOY data and the.
no, I don't know, but she's talking about
The correlation
about
with NJS.
the assessment, yeah. In looking at the right, well, that's but if you want to talk about right when the impact that it had on their actual comparative results or whatnot, there's nothing to compare it to, at least from the state's perspective. But again, we're making strides in keeping track of this stuff in house and you know, having a little bit more of a individualized, you know, learning plan, action plan with these other you know, enhancements that we're offering when it comes to curriculum. But there's a lot of work.
Yeah, but I just want to say, like, we knew that there was a concern with these upper grades, and I feel like we've done a lot more from the beginning of the year to where we are now than we ever have to address certain needs. So, you know,
I agree.
proud of how hard some of us worked to try to get it off and running.
Definitely, yeah, definitely more proactive this year, I would say, than in years past, and that's hopefully we'll see positive gains as a result. You know, I think that's just one part of it, but every little bit helps. You know, we know. So.
And maybe we'll adopt that curriculum going down a little bit. Maybe we'll adopt the 7-8 curriculum going down a little bit farther to support
That'd be nice to keep
exactly what she
cohesive.
said.
I'm just wondering, when you get kindergartners that come in, do you know if they've been to a preschool program? Do you know that information?
Yes, they provide that information. That's and when we do the kindergarten assessment screenings, yeah, that's information that we get. I mean, well, not in recent years because the schools were closed, you know, but you know, historically, it's more surprising when kids haven't gone to preschool than when they have. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thanks,
you,
Adam. Okay, I'm gonna move on. If that's okay.
Oh yeah.
All right. So I have just a few points of business here. First of them being our enrollment update. I'm pleased to report for the first time in many months we are at full enrollment. All right. That's not to say that there may not be some turnover between now and next month. But right now we are at full enrollment with all grades, and that's good news.
You filled that 8th grade spot.
We did fill the 8th grade
nice.
spot. Yep. Yeah. So the admissions and lottery update is that the application for the 24-25 school year is now open. The deadline for applications, at least for the lottery, is January 5th. The lottery will be held on January 12th. We've got 2 open houses planned. One is on November 16th. One is December 9th. Actually, just today, I sent out 1,400 emails, not by hand, by mail merge, but just to anyone who has applied before, just as a reminder, to let them know that the application's open, and that'll keep our enrollment and application numbers up. But a pretty aggressive advertising sort of blast that we put out there for our open houses and the fact that we're accepting applications should also keep our application numbers up, which is something else that we're sort of gauged by how long our wait list is and everything else too. So that's up and running for next year. The last thing that I have before I turn it over to Sonia is a facility update. Just a couple minor things. First one just being some work that we're looking to have done with our electric company. We're looking at having some emergency lights that are dated in the building actually replaced, ones that would go on in the event of a power outage. And the other thing that we recently did was we had our HVAC monitoring company come in and they recalibrated our system and updated the app that we use to modify the temperatures, and we made sure that all relevant personnel have access to that now. And it's actually made a really big difference. If you remember, I don't know, last week, the week before, we'd wake up and it'd be 30 degrees and then it'd be 70 degrees in the afternoon. It was really difficult to really keep the classrooms at a steady level. Since they've made that change, things have been very easy to set and sort of leave. It's pretty comfortable in here for the first time in a while. Some may say it's a little warm, including me, but it's working, so that's good. So those are the only real facility sort of updates that we've been working on. We did talk a little bit about in the finance committee, something that we're looking to do in the front of the building, but I'll let them talk about that in the committee with the founders wall.
Oh, yes.
And that's all I got before I turn it over to Sonia, who's going to talk a little bit about parent-teacher conferences and some other things.
Hello, everyone. This Wednesday, we have parent-teacher conferences from 1 to 8 p.m. with a break for dinner for the staff in between. Thank you, TCCS for ordering dinner for our staff. Today, they sent a survey out to see what the staff would prefer. So the last time I looked, it was 50-50. I know. So I could check real quick right now where it is. Hold on.
What were the choices?
Either Italian or Spanish.
Still 50-50.
I haven't voted yet.
Spanish.
No, I'm just kidding.
How many votes though? 50-50 with how many votes?
28 responses.
Oh, there's still more.
So so it's till the end of the day. So hopefully we'll have at the end of work. We'll see. But thank you, seriously. Next events. Last week we had a very busy week. We had our Halloween parade on Tuesday, and afternoon we had the light show. On Friday we had our second cultural event. It was an immersive Polish, Hungarian, Ukrainian, and Turkish heritage celebration. The event was organized by Ms. D again. She worked collaboratively with TCSCO and some of the staff at TCCS. There was so much food, presenters, presentations, performances. We had a little dance towards the end. So thank you, Ms. D, and everyone who helped make it a success. It was very well appreciated. Thank you. I also wanted to thank Robbie. He came October 27th. I just wanted to throw this in events. I saw you here. And he met Miss Felici to talk about climate education. So I just want to thank you for your time. We really appreciate you for doing that. And so what we'll do is turnkey. We'll have you meet with all of our science teachers. And so he has a wealth of knowledge that he's bringing into our school. And I just appreciate that you're doing that. So thank you so much. We have our first open house next Thursday at 6:30 p.m. Like Ralph said. Our Harvest Festival will take place on November 21st. The 5th through 8th grade students are working on projects that the K through 4 students will, play and participate with. There will be a Thanksgiving feast during lunch. More specific details will follow soon. But I would like to thank the events committee for coordinating the Halloween event and Harvest Festival. So thank you, events committee. And next personnel update, we are currently looking for a special education teacher and occupational therapist. So if you know anyone, please send them our way. And I think that's personnel update.
Great. All right. So next on the agenda, we actually have Miss Anders to talk
Hired the reading specialist.
about a few things. Right. That's still posted.
So
We
we're
actually.
talking about changing that from a specific reading specialist to an interventionist.
Yeah.
So I wanted to focus on math and reading based upon opt-out. But I think first one, guys.
But you keep going, Christina. You've got a couple items here, right?
CPAC.
CPAC first.
So CPAC, for those of you who don't know, is a special education parent advisory group. It is actually run by parent liaisons, and we just are here to kind of support it. Last year, we had 2 parents, Lourdes Milan and Atika Lazrak, who ran it for us. They have not told me that they're not going to do it for me again, so I'm just going on the premise that they are. And I know Atika's listening, so. But no, we've been talking over the past couple weeks about, different things to do. As you know, we have a contract with Care Plus. We have a Rosine in the building 3 days a week to support our students, but within that contract, we also built in 2 parent workshops. So I've been talking to some of the representatives from Care Plus about some of the, hotter topics, some things that have been communicated to us. Mental health of children is really kind of up there, so we're looking at one of our CPAG meetings being kind of like a mental health 101, things maybe parents can look out for, different resources that are out there. So that's kind of all in the works. We typically have CPAG meetings once every other month starting in November. Typically we start with like an introduction to our special service staff and an overview of the special service process, which we'll still do again this year for parents and individuals who are unaware of kind of what services we have here and who our special service staff is. And then just the important thing is, even though it's a special education parent advisory group, it is not just open for parents of class 5 children to come. We provide a wealth of information for kind of any resource for any parent who has a child who may have any struggle anywhere. So more information will come out as that.
So is Care Plus helping you with like a mental health 101?
Care Plus is going to help
Okay.
us with the mental health 101.
Call me if you need any assistance.
We found we found that we've attempted to have in-person things, and they're not very well attended.
I know.
And we even attempted to have them like right before board meetings to like drag people in. It was a little bit better. We found that virtual presentations are definitely better attended.
Just not as effective.
And last year we did our first hybrid. So, we offered for people to come in. However, I think I may have looked like a crazy person because I was talking to nobody. Who do you think you walked by? Someone walked by and saw me talking to the cafeteria. Nobody in it. But I was really talking to the people on the computer. So we may just stick with virtual. We may offer hybrid, but we'll see how it goes. Oh, I gotta keep going.
Keep going. There's 2 more.
But maybe we can figure
Yeah.
HIB update. Unfortunately, I have to send you guys another HIB report this month. There was a report of an inappropriate comment made in the classroom for children. Through investigation, it didn't fall under the criteria of what a HIB is. While it was still very inappropriate, there were consequences handed out and kind of a little bit of mediation between students. And we kind of went from there. All parents were kind of on board and very supportive, so that's that one. And then the HIB self-assessment. So every year the state puts out a self-assessment for our HIB and school and safety team. Basically, we have to go on and they show us the criteria of like what's expected of us and where we are doing it. Our score this year is like this much lower than was last year, and that's because their criteria has gotten much more specific and in-depth with like the specific reporting form and the specific things that you need. So we're doing what we should be doing. Our score, even though it went down, we're still like meeting all the criteria. Now we're just looking to exceed all the criteria moving forward.
So you alluded to like the documentation. Was that where we got the lower score?
A little bit.
Okay.
So that one, and also bringing more community into like the HIB and school safety procedures. So we have to look at how we're gonna handle that.
I mean, I will say, as you guys know this too, because you've seen like the reports and whatnot, the record keeping and the documentation has gotten a lot better, since we've been integrated the new form and things like that. So hopefully, we keep that going.
Thank you.
Great. So back to you.
Me?
Yep.
Board retreat. So we held our board retreat. It went really well, I think. It was virtual, so most members were there. We did talk about some of our takeaways was a schedule for reporting on the goals from Mr. Gallo to us. And we did our ethics training. We didn't have order a dinner, which next time we will. But I think that was pretty much it. It was a good meeting with Matt Lee. And that's you.
Great. So a little further on that point that Siamata made, the board has asked me to give a little bit more regular updates on our district goals. In talking about how that may be structured, it was determined that the formal state of the school address, which is done closer to the end of the school year, so that we can sort of act on these things and celebrate the things that we're already hitting along the way, which I think is great. So yeah, I think that's definitely the plan going forward. And in order to sort of make it, not too overbearing for anybody, because these are things that are in progress, we decided that it would be good for these reports to coincide with the end of the trimesters. So the first report that I'll give is going to be on December 4th at the next meeting. The next one after that will be on March 11th at that meeting. And then finally, the third one will take place on May 13th, which sort of lines up too with evaluations and things like that. So that works out. The December 4th. That'll be next month. Okay. Yeah, and then so yeah, we'll have an opportunity to really just remind ourselves of what those goals are and see what kind of progress we've made, and it should be a positive thing.
Okay, the only committee that met was finance. Nina, do you want to give your recap when you're ready?
Okay. So the check register for this month totaled $213,530.82. Again, a lot of the checks coming in were already from purchase orders and everything set up during the summer. So a lot of these are just the payments that are coming in now. So lots of things to sign. But along with that, we did review the August report, and then we also discussed for the upcoming winter snow removal contract. So Tom did share with us they're likely to use the same company they used previously. Last year we weren't met with tons and tons of snow, but as with all things, it seems like there's a bit of an increase in the rate for service. So he did let us know that probably a small amount of snow, like 0 to 2 inches, used to cost $3.95 to clear. Now it's $4.25, so it is up a little bit. So these are just things for us to be aware of. Obviously, these things are becoming a little more expensive over time naturally. So we also talked a little bit about field trips. We've been just taking a look at all of the wonderful field trips that are planned. I know Ms. Torres is looking at these very closely as well. Our leadership is looking at these closely just to make sure that they are, trips that have high educational value for our students as well. So a little bit of an overrun with the budget for that. However, we'll continue as part of our discussions with the finance committee, and being, just making really like the best decisions around like these trips, because obviously we've been really excited coming out of the pandemic to have educational trips for our students. So I think that's something that we'll continue to talk about over the year. But nonetheless, there's more plans, so you'll see these in the upcoming meetings. Also more on that, so you can stay tuned. Update on banking institutions. So if you recall last month, we had shared that Tom is looking into a couple of different banking institutions, looking at institutions that may provide a more competitive rate with interest. So that's something that's he's still exploring. So more to that in the future. So those conversations are ongoing for us at the moment. One of the other items that came up on our discussion today was the founders wall. So following, I can say her last name right, Ms. Criange, sorry. Ms. Criange, I do not have my children do not have the joy of being with her, unfortunately. But, I could tell she was very loved at the end with her retirement, her leave. So one of the things that we were discussing is the possibility of honoring our founders. We were discussing the idea of creating a wall, possibly like just outside the school, where we can honor them and put up their names. We know there's 17 founders, so we're looking at a couple of like opportunities of different displays that would be weatherproof and friendly and sustainable. So more on that to come. We'll start looking at some of that and then we'll share more information with you. But we thought it was a good way to go a little bit more above and beyond of honoring founders for our school. So that's something that we're excited about as a project with the board. So. And the last thing that came up, so you might have heard earlier mentioning about refreshments for board meetings. We've discussed that possibility in the future of having that for the board members. So that's a possibility that we'll explore for a few meetings in the future. It is something that's available. We have not, I don't think we've ever done that before. So it's only my second year coming in, but that's something that we discussed a little today. So more news to follow on that.
Thank you, Enid.
Yep.
Thank
Resolution.
Sure. Okay, so I'll go down the resolution list. We've got 10 for tonight. The first one is a budget summary, which is all the bills that we've paid since the last meeting. We've got the SBA financial report for the month of August 2023, which Tom shared with everyone. We've got a substitute teacher appointment. We've got a personnel appointment for extracurricular purposes, which is the appointment of one tutor to get this program up and running. So that's number 4. We've got a snow removal contract with the provider that was shared with everyone. We've got our list of basketball referees and scoreboard operators for the season, which is going to start in December. We've got the HIB self-assessment that Christina mentioned before. We've got the HIB report that she had also shared with everyone, acknowledging that. And then we actually have an acceptance of a resignation for our special ed teacher, which we're looking to replace, Ms. Yadira. And then finally, we've got a formal acknowledgement of the retirement of Sonia McDaniel, who made her retirement official on November 1st. So we'll be recognizing that as well. And those are the resolutions.
Thank you.
Good.
So now we're open for public comment regarding any of the resolutions. Any public comment regarding any general information? Alrighty, so resolution 2311-01 for October 10th, 2023 to November 6th, 2023, total amount of $213,530.82. Be approved. Vallejo Justin moves. Second. Gilchrist seconds. Any questions or comments from the board? Bahari?
Yes.
Carter?
Yes.
Hallway?
Yes.
Lazoo?
Yes.
McGilchrist?
Yes.
Mitchell?
Yes.
Vallejo Justin?
Yes.
Adnat, yes. Resolution carries. Resolution 2311-02, SBA Financial Report, August 2023. Be it resolved that the TCCS Board of Trustees approve the SBA Financial Report for August 2023. Moved by? Had not moved. Second? McGilchrist seconds. Any questions or comments from the board? Bahari?
Yes.
Carter?
Yes.
Hallway?
Yes.
Lazoo?
Yes.
McGilchrist?
Yes.
Mitchell?
Yes.
Vallejo Justin?
Yes.
Adnat, yes. Resolution carries. Resolution 2311-03, substitute appointment. Be it resolved that the Board of Trustees approve the following personnel appointment for the 2023-2024 school year. Evan Guzman, substitute teacher at $150 per day. Moved by? McGilchrist moves. Second? Lazoo seconds. Any questions or comments from the board? Bahari?
Yes.
Carter?
Yes.
Hallway?
Yes.
Lazoo?
Yes.
McGilchrist?
Yes.
Mitchell?
Yes.
Vallejo Justin?
Yes.
Adnat, yes. Resolution carries. Resolution 2311-04, for the personnel appointments, extra. Be it resolved that the TCCS board appoint the following personnel as after-school tutor pursuant of the URSR funds availability with pay enhancement at a rate of $50 an hour for tutoring time for the 2023-2024 school year. Isabel Landers. Moved by? Had Adnat moves, Lizu seconds. Questions or comments from the board? Bahari,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Hallway,
Yes.
Lizu,
Yes.
McGilchrist,
Yes.
Mitchell, Vallejo Justy,
Yes.
Adnat, yes. Resolution carries. Resolution 2311-05, snow removal contract. Be it resolved that the Board of Trustees approve the attached contract with New Bridge Snow Services for the 2023-2024 school year. Moved by
McGilchrist.
McGilchrist, moves second.
Hallway.
Hallway seconds. Any questions or comments from the board? Bahari,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Hallway,
Yes.
Lizu,
Yes.
McGilchrist,
Yes.
Vallejo Justy,
Yes.
Adnat, yes. Resolution carries. Resolution 2311-06, basketball referees and scoreboard operators. Be it resolved that the board approve the following basketball referees and scoreboard operators for the 2023-2024 season. Assigner Mike Peruello. One-time fee of $60. Referees $60 per game. Eric Leeds, Keith Degelman, Mike Rule, Nubar Kasarayan, Ray Perez, Tom Gorman, Willie O'Toole. Scoreboard operators at $40 per game. Mateus Andrade and Michael T. Moved by
Hallway.
Hallway, moves second.
McGilchrist.
McGilchrist seconds. Sorry, Mike. Mr. T.
Let's do the food.
Any questions or comments from the board? Bahari,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Hallway,
Yes.
Lizu, McGilchrist,
Yes.
Mitchell,
Yes.
Vallejo Justy,
Yes.
Adnat, yes. Resolution carries. Resolution 20 HIB self-assessment. Be it resolved that the Board of Trustees approve the submission of the HIB self-assessment for the 2022-2023 school year. Moved by
Hallway.
Hallway, moves second.
McGilchrist.
McGilchrist seconds. Any questions or comments from the board? Bahari,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Hallway,
Yes.
Lizu,
Yes.
McGilchrist,
Yes.
Mitchell,
Yes.
Vallejo Justy,
Yes.
Adnat, yes. Resolution carries. Resolution 2311-08, HIB report acknowledgement. Be it resolved that the Board of Trustees acknowledges receipt of the report from TCCS HIB Specialist Christina Anders on November 6, 2023. Moved by
Hallway.
Hallway, moves second.
McGilchrist.
McGilchrist. Any questions or comments from the board? Bahari,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Hallway,
Yes.
Lizu,
Yes.
McGilchrist,
Yes.
Mitchell,
Yeah.
Vallejo Justy,
Yes.
Adnat, yes. Resolution carries. Resolution 2311-09, acceptance of resignation. Be it resolved that the Board of Trustees accept the resignation of Yadira Perez, teacher, effective December 12th or sooner at the discretion of the executive director. Moved by
McGilchrist.
McGilchrist, moves second. Lizu seconds. I just want to make a comment that Ms. Perez has had a big impact on my daughter. So she will be missed, and we wish her the best of luck. Any other comments or questions from the board? Bahari,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Hallway,
Yes.
Lizu,
Yes.
McGilchrist,
Yes.
Mitchell,
Yes.
Vallejo Justy,
Yes.
Adnat, yes. Resolution carries. Resolution 2311-10, acknowledgement of retirement. Be it resolved that the Board of Trustees acknowledge the retirement of Sonia McDaniel, teacher, effective November 1st, 2023. Moved by
Hallway.
Hallway, moves second.
McGilchrist.
McGilchrist seconds. Any questions or comments from the board?
I just want to wish Sonia McDaniel congratulations, obviously, on her retirement. I had the opportunity to work with her for 19 years, Sonia even longer. So we really just wish her nothing but the best, and really hope that she has a nice and enjoyable, healthy retirement.
How many years was she here?
20
Wow.
plus, yeah.
That's right.
Right at the 20th,
Yeah.
at her 20th last year.
All right, we wish her the best of luck. Any other comments or questions from the board? Bahari,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Hallway,
Yes.
Lizu,
Yes.
McGilchrist,
Yes.
Mitchell,
Yes.
Vallejo Justy,
Yes.
Adnat, yes. Resolution carries. This meeting is adjourned at 8:19. Thank you guys for coming.
That's a beer.